Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monique Alcantara, and I am pleased to welcome you to the kickoff of the Federal Fiscal Year 2023 CSBG State Plan reporting season. Today's webinar will focus on the OMB clearance, or the Office of Management and Budget clearance, and what's changed since your last submissions. Before we get started, I would like to go over some housekeeping items. Everyone has been muted on entry. We ask that everyone remains on mute throughout the webinar. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please enter those using the Q&A function within Zoom. We will have time to address those questions at the end of the webinar, and we'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout the webinar. This webinar is being recorded. The recording, along with a copy of the slides, will be posted to the OCS CSBG webinars page, also linked here. Finally, all the information in this webinar will also be included in a future DCL, or Dear Colleague letter. You can also use the Dear Colleague letter as a helpful reference once it is sent out later this week. Today, I am joined by Sharice Johnson, the Division Director of the Division of Community Assistance, or DCA, and my colleague, Joey Lim, a CSBG Data and Research Analyst. And to reintroduce myself, I am Monique Alcantara, a CSBG Management and Program Analyst. Today, we'll hear opening remarks from Sharice. She'll also provide an overview of the purpose of the CSBG State Plan. We'll then discuss a brief history of the OMB clearance and some key updates made to the CSBG State Plan for fiscal year 2023. We'll then provide some next steps and some OCS contacts. We will have time for questions at the end and then close with a few announcements. With that, I'll pass it to Sharice Johnson to provide opening remarks.
Thank you, Monique, and good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, state administrators and your staff. Good afternoon, training and technical assistance partners, and anyone else who's on this call, just to learn more about the state plans. We're so excited to be able to come before you to share updates and really to talk about the importance of the state plan. In OCS, Division of Community Assistance, we've been looking at state plans even closer than ever before. And we hope that this webinar today will be informative, answer many of your questions as you really finalize your plans, because I'm sure many of you have already started the process. When we think about the state plans, I just think it's important to say that the state plans are more than just meeting the legislative requirements of submitting a plan. They really are a roadmap for states. They're a tool for states to use to support continuous quality improvement. And the state plan is a guide to develop and implement important processes within the state in order to meet the CSBG requirements and to do it successfully. So we're really excited to bring to you just another opportunity to really talk about the state plans as continuous quality improvement, lessons learned, inform our new state plans. Also, it's required by the legislative requirements for CSBG. It's a way to establish goals and to make sure we're addressing all the 14 assurances of CSBG. And it serves as a really good tool. And when I'm talking with the team in OCS, I always say it's what gives us information in regards to the Office of Community Services regarding what states are doing, how to have conversation, even more conversations with the states about their plans, what we're seeing, if they're reaching their milestones, and be that federal partner that's very involved, engaged, and aware of what's going on in the states, the territories, and as applicable with our tribal grantees. We know that when we provide good state plans, it becomes like our strategic plan for how you're going to implement CSBG on a state level and a territorial level. And that's really important to us because we follow the plans, we use them for information regarding what's happening in each state. And so when these plans are developed really, really well, we really get an opportunity to talk about the great work that you're planning, how the states are working with their eligible entities, policies and procedures that you have in place to guide your work. And it really creates a well-rounded narrative of what to expect when we have conversations with states and territories, as well as providing technical assistance and support along this journey. The state plans are important. The state plans are a reliable tool to get good information and really sets the framework for how states will move forward with implementing their CSBG programs. Just for a quick reference, I just want to reference the next slide because it really speaks to just the legislative requirement. I'm sure all of you all are very familiar with this, but we just want to remind you that since 2000, we've been in this posture in regards to when the state plans are due, the obligation to submit the plans on a regular basis, and how we use the state plans in response to what's being covered through a fiscal period or budget period. All of our state plans are either one-year plans or they're two-year plans. The ones of you who are in two-year cycles, you know there are opportunities also to make updates to your plan. So many of these items will be covered today during this discussion, but I just want to say the state plans is our beginning point. It should align clearly with what we see in our annual reporting at the end of the year. And we should be able, from a federal perspective, as well as states and territories, to do a crosswalk based on what you included in your state plan and what we see in the results of annual reporting. So I just want to say thank you all again for joining us today. I believe the information that will be shared will be helpful as you finalize your plans, and we look forward to receiving all of these plans that are required for this fiscal year or 2023 by September 1st of 2022. So thank you again, and I'm going to turn it over to Joey, and she's going to tell you more about in regards to key updates regarding the CSBG State Plan. Joey?
Great, thank you so much for that overview, Sharice. Before I get started on this portion, I noticed in the Q&A someone asked about whether we should be seeing a PowerPoint up on your screen. Could I get confirmation from folks in the audience? Are you able to see the PowerPoint and hear us? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. If you have any trouble, just feel free to message us and we can work with you directly. So anyway, I will now start highlighting some of the key updates made for the fiscal year 2023 state plan, and you'll also hear from my colleague Monique later on. I want to note that future webinars will go over in detail all of the content of the state plan, but for today, we'll focus on just the changes made, and that's so you can keep them in mind as you go through this webinar series. Next slide, please. We thought it would be helpful to start by providing context on the process we followed to arrive at this latest version of the state plan, and on your screen is an overview and timeline of that process. As you can see, the approval process or clearance history of the fiscal year 23 state plan spanned from May to August of 2021. May 2021 is when we first announced the proposed revisions, and in addition, we opened up a 60-day public comment period. In July, we released a DCL that addressed the questions you received during that initial phase of the public comment period. And at that time, we also announced a 30-day public comment period. During that 30-day period, we did receive additional comments. And because we wanted time to review and to respond to those comments before implementing the updates, we sought and we received approval to use a previously approved version. And this was announced to the CSBG network in August of 2021. By the end of August, we received approval from OMB to use a new version, or version 3.0 of the state plan, and this is the version of focus for this webinar series. So with that, we will now be going over some of the updates that have been made. And the first update that you will see is to the CSBG eligible entity list. In the fiscal year 23 state plan, there are two new data points that have been added: executive director or corporate position and website address. OCS included these data points to ensure that we keep information on eligible entities up to date. And while we added these new data points, please note that states do not need to make any revisions to the eligible entity list at this time. Please be on the lookout for upcoming communications from OCS with more information on that later on. Now, these two added data points are what is most relevant to the fiscal year 23 plan, but we also wanted to make you aware of another change that is coming on the horizon. And to preface, this particular change will have no effect on the fiscal year 23 state plan or the fiscal year 2022 annual report. We just wanted to ensure that this is on your radar. So it's important to note that OCS will eventually be adding a new variable called the Unique Early Identifier, or the UEI, to the eligible entity list. And the UEI, for background, was implemented by the US government in April of this year. It will eventually come to replace the DUNS number with the purpose of serving as the single unique identifier that can be used across government systems. So in anticipation of this update, OCS will be submitting a non-substantive change request to OMB to have the UEI added to the eligible entity list. But again, this will have no effect on the fiscal year 23 CSBG state plan or the fiscal year 2022 annual report. But we wanted to announce this for your awareness. So I will now hand it over to Monique, who will discuss more of the revisions and additions to the state plan in detail.
Thank you, Joey. And one thing I'll add about the CSBG eligible entity list, once the UEI, which is the unique entity identifier, not early identifier, we apologize for that. Once that is added, everyone will have to update their eligible entity list. So essentially, we're putting the eligible entity list on hold. We'll still be using it for the CSBG state plan, which means it still has to be in submitted status. But rather than everyone making revisions now to add the director and the website, and then having to make edits again to add the UEI, we're having everyone make those edits later in the year, and we will be releasing more information about that as those come into effect. But as Joey mentioned, it will have no effect on the fiscal year 2023 CSBG state plan or the fiscal year 2022 CSBG annual report. We also made some revisions to the CSBG state plan, particularly to the questions you see on the screen, which are 8.1, 8.2, 9.2, and 9.3. And we added two new questions, 7.3a and 10.13a. We also made slight revisions throughout the CSBG state plan with some languages, such as saying the state plan intends, or the state intends instead of the state plans, just to provide some clarity throughout. And we've done that in a few years just to make sure that we're constantly improving, doing a quality improvement check on the CSBG state plan. But today we'll delve into these revisions and these new questions just a little bit. But as Joey's mentioned, we do have a series of webinars upcoming that will delve more further into all of these questions. So let's talk about the first CSBG state plan revision. 8.1 asks that the CSBG state administrators create an outline of their training and technical assistance plan for the fiscal years that are covered by the CSBG state plan. So if you're doing a one-year plan, you would only provide an outline for the first year. If you're doing a two-year plan, then you're expected to provide an outline for both years. Originally, this question only requested training and technical assistance that was being funded through discretionary funds, or as reported in 7.9a. However, we've heard you. You have informed us that you don't always do training using discretionary funds. So we open up this question to include all TNTA that's performed within the state, whether it's directly by the state or through partnerships and collaboration, as well as all funding, regardless of whether it's funded through admin funds or discretionary funds or through other means. So 8.1 should now include all training that the CSBG state administrators plan to provide within their state. 8.2 is asking for organizational standards, technical assistance. Originally, this question also asked for any eligible entities that were in TAPS or QUIPs if they had unmet organizational standards. However, after a review of the CSBG Act, we did remove QUIPs from this question to better align with the CSBG Act as to when a eligible entity may be put, as to when a state may put a quality improvement plan into place. So it was a small change, but we thought that it was important because a CSBG eligible entity shouldn't necessarily be put onto a QUIP solely for not having met organizational standards. And the last revisions that we made were to 9.2 and 9.3. And we wanted to be more inclusive of linkages and coordination at the state and local levels. We want to ensure that the state is seeking all opportunities to encourage collaboration and partnerships. And we also want to ensure that the CSBG state plan and eventually CSBG annual report allows the space for CSBG network to speak about all the work that is happening within the communities. We will continue to train and provide examples of the type of work that we're expecting to see here. I think that in the past several months, you've seen OCS making a bigger push to show ways to collaborate with other ACF programs, and we're hoping to see that at the state level and the local level as well. Lastly, I will quickly speak about the new questions that we have within the CSBG state plan. So the first question we had is 7.3a, which is the distribution method. And we want to be, we want to be better able to define and understand the distribution methods that are being used across the CSBG network. Based on information that we received during our monitoring visits or site visits, we've noticed that most states use one of these options, which the first is reimbursement, which is payment made to entities after expenses incurred, and advance, which is payment made to entities prior to expenses being incurred and on a regular basis. And then there's a hybrid, which is either a one-time advance or advances that are recovered by the state over time. We also want to include an option for other in case your distribution method does not fall under one of these three. And we would ask that you define your distribution method if it does not fall under a reimbursement, an advance, or a hybrid. We'll use this information to provide TEA and look at best practices, especially in cases where we receive supplementals. It will help us be more able to provide you training and technical assistance. 10.13a is a yes or no question. In the case that we're asking whether or not there's any federal investigation policies in place within the monitoring policies. The monitoring policies, the states already include that under 10.2. It's usually an attachment. And so we're just asking whether or not the policies that are attached include procedures for permitting and cooperating with federal investigations. Now, this is not a requirement by the Act, but it is something that we often ask when we are doing our monitoring visits. So this just allows us to better prepare prior to coming out to the state for a site visit or monitoring. We will also be discussing this in more detail during the June 29th webinar. But again, we do want to state, we understand that it's not a requirement that states have these procedures in place, but some states do. And so we're just asking for that information prior to coming to visit, and we do consider it a best practice. Now we will briefly talk about some next steps. In the DCL that's forthcoming, we will include a fillable CSBG State Plan with the new changes, a fillable version of the CSBG eligible entity list with the UEI included so that you can start preparing to collect that information from the eligible entities within your states. And we have the upcoming webinar series on the state plan, with the next webinar being next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Later this afternoon, you will see the pre-registration links for all the webinars that will be released. And one thing that I noticed is not on the slide, but we also want to say that OLDC is expected to open by the end of June, if not a little bit sooner, and we will release a DCL with an official announcement saying that OLDC is open. As you are preparing for your state plans, we want to make sure that you're aware of the OLDC technical assistance. So we have myself, Joey, Nikki, and Jacinta. As we've mentioned previously during the annual report submissions, now to log into OLDC, you do need to use login.gov. So we do suggest that you try to log in sooner rather than later, especially if it's been a while since you've logged into OLDC, to ensure that you have access. And if you do not, please feel free to send those emails to myself and Nikki, and we will make sure that we respond to you as quickly as possible. And as always, please copy CSBG States at acf.hhs.gov on all emails. And now we will open it up for questions.
Great, thank you so much, Monique. It looks like we received just one so far. So Tina is asking, how does an eligible entity get a UEI? Where should I direct them to get that started?
So the UEI is, so I will try to find the simplest way. It is assigned to each eligible entity through sam.gov. So if they're not registered with sam.gov yet, they should do that. In the DCL, we do include some links. So we'll try to include some of those links in the chat so that you have some awareness about that announcement. But this change was implemented as of April of this year. So most, if not all, eligible entities should have a UEI.
Great, thank you. There's a second question that just came in. Do states in the middle of their 2-year state plan need to submit updates based on the new additions?
Not at this time. So if you are in the middle of a 2-year state plan, you do not need to make you do not need to submit based on the new revisions or new additions to the questions. We would just expect for you to provide that information when it's time to submit your next CSBG state plan. But thank you for asking.
Thank you. There's another question. If we have new staff to add to Grant Solutions, who do we contact?
Nikki and Jacinta, and I will show their emails again. Jacinta is primarily the person that adds some contacts, but we always ask that you copy one other person just to make sure your email is not missed.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. I think those are the questions for now. If there are others that come in, I think we can circle back at the end, but maybe we can move into announcements. Okay, so first announcement, you'll find here the upcoming webinar scheduled for this series on the fiscal year 2023 state plan. As Monique mentioned, the next one is June 22, which is next Wednesday. And here our colleagues at OCS will be delving into sections 1 through 5 of the state plan with a special focus on eligible entities. Please do be on the lookout for our webinar announcements over email. Our second announcement has to do with a new exciting announcement, which is OCS is now on Twitter. So if you use Twitter, give us a follow at OCS_ACFGov, and there you'll see updates on what we as an office are working on and up to. And our third update, OCS has started using a new electronic mailing service that helps us communicate information in a timely manner and also collect helpful analytics to inform our future outreach efforts. Because of the platform that we are using, please note that some messages may at first land in your junk or spam folder. So as we transition to using the service, we request that you continue to check those folders for communications from us. We do have one final announcement, and I will hand it over to Charisse.
Thank you, Joey. CSBG is launching its first comprehensive training and technical assistance needs assessment. You've received prior communications regarding our goal to really look at our training and technical assistance system and figure out ways to strengthen it and build on it. Prior communications also were sent out last week to inform you and give you the information to link to the survey and also to take the survey. The survey is comprehensive. However, we need to hear from you. So we're asking that you commit to completing the survey, also share it with staff within your organization that work on CSBG to really, really learn more about our training and technical assistance needs. We don't anticipate that we would do a comprehensive training and technical assistance needs survey every year. So that's why it's so important for all of you all to please encourage your eligible entities as well as working yourselves to complete the state assessment, the state comprehensive training and technical needs assessment, excuse me. OCS, as we stated in prior communication, is committed to strengthening the TA that we provide and support. And we know that TA must be relevant, it must be effective, it must anticipate your needs. And the best way for us to be able to do that is that you complete the survey. So we're asking you to please complete the survey by the deadline of July 8th. We'll be following up over the next few weeks to talk about how well we're doing. And we just want to say, this is really, really important to us. It's important as we move forward in providing the best services and the best program to support the CSBG block grant. And I just urge you and ask you to please complete the survey by the date. I'm being a little repetitious, but it's only because it's really, really important to inform our future work. So thank you all for your attention to the survey. And we hope we get the results that will allow us to accomplish those goals to make sure that we use our resources to provide the best TA and technical assistance we can to support the CSBG network. If you notice, if you did not receive a survey as a state, territory, or tribal entity last week, then we ask that you check your junk mail. Because we're using this new communication strategy, sometimes it will go into your junk mail or to your spam. So we ask that you let us know if you did not receive the survey, if you are state, territory, or a tribal organization, that you please let us know and we'll make sure you get the announcement. It's also on the CSBG State's ACF website. So please consider looking there as well. So Monique, do we have any more questions?
It does not appear that we have any more questions. We'll give you guys a few more moments to answer any questions, but this is the end of today's presentation. I also added the SurveyMonkey link to the chat. And just to follow up on what Sheree said, if you do not see the email, again, please check your junk or spam mailbox, or you can email me or Nikki and we can double check that we have you on the listserv. And for that, I will also just share our our emails one more time for your awareness. But if you do not receive the email, please let Nikki or I know, and we will make sure that you are included in the listserv for future communications.
Seeing no questions, we want to say thank you for joining today's session. You know, it's one of a few sessions regarding the state plan. We hope you find this session to be helpful to you as you understand more about what has changed and as you finalize your state plans that you will submit by September 1st. Thank you for your attention. We hope to see a good turnout in future webinars regarding the state plan. And I hope everyone has a nice evening. Thank you.